Class again. I'm a faculty Vivek Birda from TMU, Yudhanga Mahavir University, back for the subject business environment, where we will be studying a lot about this subject and we will be focusing about how this subject is helpful in analyzing the information which is used for the business studies for, and even for the growth of the businesses. We have discussed many things. Now moving to the next topic. The next topic is about the internal environment in the organization. The internal environment or the level of the organization that has an immediate and specific implications for it is called as an internal environment. Remember, the internal environment for an organization consists of following words. It includes the following factors, which includes the mission, it includes the objective, it includes about the internal, the power relationships, about the human resource capability, about the marketing capability, about the physical assets, R&D, that is research and development, brand equity, and the brand image. So mission is something, mission statement is something which represents how the organization is looking ahead to achieve its short-term goals. Objectives are those steps or those tools which the organization want to achieve in order to achieve their mission. These two things are very carefully planned. Any organization's environmental scanning is very crucially being studied through studying these two parameters, that is objective and the mission. Additionally, their resources, which includes men, money, machine. In this, the men is only the living asset. That is something which is not in which is very carefully being selected. Apart from that, their money and the machines with the resources, they are non-living things. So human resource which are in the organization, the growth of the organization is directly dependent upon the human resource capability. Then about the internal power relationships. Internal power is represents the how good and how strong the organization's team bonding is done, how smartly the organization's departments are coordinated with each other. Then the even the scanning of the physical assets, that is all those things which the company own, is also been studied very carefully. These physical assets are those assets which the organization carry. These are those things which organization think for and are very carefully very carefully handled. Any new project, any existing project, or any changes in the project or any plan or any strategies is directly linked with the assets the organization has. Assets can be their physical land, their even factories, their raw materials, machines, or even it includes their manpower, the cash, or the amount of the funds in their art. Even discuss about their customers, the debtors, all those things are also part of their assets. Then very strongly we need to focus while studying the internal environment is the marketing capabilities. Marketing capability represents how good is the reach of the company, how strong the company is focusing, how strong the organization is focusing on. Better the organization is growing up, more strong the organization will be able to make the things. Then about the R&D sector and about the brand image. These two things are also very important and very carefully being studied over there. Marketing capabilities represents the organization's ability to handle the market either through their customers, through their consumers, through their products, and many more things. When we talk about the R&D, into the R&D segment, into the research and development side, we focus on creating things. We create, we think of creating those things which are future savvy, which are more innovative, which carries the innovation. And this is only and only possible if you are able to scan our environment. And for R&D, the needs of the customers are being studied, the requirements of the market are being studied, then the capability or the financial resources are being studied, then only this is possible. In focusing on the brand image is again a very important parameter which has been studied very carefully over here, because image is something which is created very carefully. And creating a brand image is a very important parameter. Next includes the approaches to the environmental analysis. The approaches, there are two types of approaches. First is outside in approach, second is inside out approach. The outside-in approach and the inside-out approach are of two types. In this, the inside and outside, the outside-in approach includes the macro approach. It even includes the long-term perspective of the business. It includes identifying the changes in the macro environment and also about necessary changes in the organizational internal environment. Whereas the inside-out approach, it includes about the macro approach. It includes about involves the analysis of the changes in the internal environment of the businesses, rebuilding the strength and removal of the weakness, which are objectives of this approach. So inside and outside are two types of approach. Remember, the outside approach is something when we study on all those parameters which are out of the organization. It is a macro approach in which we study the things carefully, planning the things on the long-term perspective. We think out all those things which will bring the change in the organization on a longer side. Whereas inside out approach is the approach in which we create the changes in the organization based on the internal environment of the organization. It is focusing on the strength and weakness of the organization, and also it helps in these things plan out by carefully planning out the objectives, vision, mission of the organization. So now moving further, the next topic for today's session is about the forecast. So what is forecasting? Forecasting is something which is the technique. You must have read this or you must have heard something about the forecasting. It is process of predicting the future based on the historical data. If I say the very basic name and language, forecasting. The forecasting is a technique which uses historical data to make the uninformed decisions about the future events or the conditions, and it isn't just by simply guessing. It is used as a tool by the businesses and the investors for forecasting. Like, it takes expert analysis, and also there are a lot of complex models which allocate the portfolios and budgets. So this forecasting is something which is very carefully planned out, very carefully designed out over there. Now, what is this environmental forecasting? Environmental forecasting is the practice of projecting and forecasting the future environmental trends and the situations using the modeling techniques, scientific understandings, and the existing data. It assists in identifying the areas of the concern that needs mitigation or the adaptation actions, as well as possible environmental effects of the different growth scenarios. Thus, the several interdisciplinary disciplines such as ecology, geology, climate science, and the social sciences are involved in environmental forecasting in order to present a thorough view of the future. So, environmental forecasting is nothing but it is basically a practice. It is a practice, remember. It is something which is very commonly used approach in which we try to forecast and project about the potential trends and situations by using various statistical modeling techniques or by understanding various scientific and details through the existing data. It assists in identifying, through this forecasting, we try to identify those areas which are of concern, and we try to mitigate or adapt those actions as well as possible environmental effects to the different growth scenarios. There are a large number of things, disciplines such as ecology, geology, climate science, social sciences, which are involved in environmental forecasting in order to present a thorough view of the future. Now, what is the meaning of environmental forecasting? Forecasting, as we say, it is a way of estimating the future events that have major impact on the enterprises, And this forecasting is something, is a technique whereby the managers attempt to predict the future or of the organizational environment and have make decisions today that will help the firm to deal with the environment of the tomorrow. Forecasting involves use of statistical and non-statistical qualitative techniques, and these techniques are discussed later in the future. Now, when we talk about environmental forecasting, how we can define it? We can define it very simply by saying that it is estimating the intensity, nature, and timing of the external forces that may affect the performance of the firm, disrupt its plan, or force a change in its strategy. Thus, This environmental forecasting is basically it is estimating the intensity by which anything may happen, basically the time frame when it will happen and how it will happen in nature of all those forces which may affect the performance of the firm, or it due to which it may has to be either change their plans, it may be positive or negative, anything. Remember, it can be either positive or negative. And these forces or the change in the strategies are also over there. So this is very, very common practice, very, very common tool, which has been done almost in every sector, every organization, and every processes. There are various other things apart from this. For example, we have been seeing the weather forecasting, we have been seeing the population forecast, we have seen the crops or the agriculture forecast, we had seen even the traffic forecast, many forecasts which are commonly which we read it in the newspapers or in the medias. But business forecast is beyond that, beyond very, very largely covered. Now, how this forecasting has been done? What are those stages through which the environmental forecasting is done? We have seen yesterday environmental scanning. It is something similar to environmental forecasting. It's also similar to that. The steps involved are first is it involved the identification of the relevant environmental variables. Identification of the relevant environmental variables includes that there should, for example, the managers can begin to formulate the effective strategy. They must make a critical examination of the firm's environment, and all the environment variables do not have to be of same relevance to all the industries. Thus, assessing the strategic situation is the first phase in determining the content of the proper strategies of a firm. This process begins with assessment of the general environment of the firm in terms of the economic, technological, social, and the political legal influences. For example, the diesel price is a critical factor for the railways using the energy source but not for the electric trains. And the omission of the critical variables of the inclusion of the non-relevant variables could have misleading effects. Second is the collection of the information. The collection of the information represents that once the environmental variables are identified, the next step is to collect the information that is needed. It involves identification of the sources of the information, determination of the types of the information to be collected, selection of the methods of the data collection, and the collection of the information. Third is selection of the forecasting technique. The choice of forecasting technique depends upon the nature of the forecast decision that involves the amount and the accuracy of the available information, accuracy required, time available, importance of the forecast, etc. has been studied. Next over here, it includes monitoring. The monitoring is very important as the characteristics of the variables on their trends in which may undergo the changes. Further, new variables may emerge as critical or the relevance of the certain variables which may decline. It is therefore necessary to monitor those changes. It is therefore necessary to monitor those changes. Next is the strategic managers must not only understand the current state of the environment and their industry, but also be able to forecast its future states. Moreover, once having implemented the environmental analysis process, the management should continuously evaluate and strive to improve for it. What are various types of forecasting? There are usually many types of forecasting, but usually into the businesses, we use 9 types of forecasting or 9 types of forecast has been done. The first represents economic forecast, second is social forecast, third is political forecast, fourth is technological forecast, fifth market forecast, sixth demographic forecast, seventh environmental and sustainability forecast, eighth is competitive forecast, and the ninth is risk forecast. First economic forecast. Economic forecast is basically it is a very critical determination of the business prospects. Economic forecast is very, very important. Economic factors often considered including general economic conditions, GDP growth rates, per capita income, structural changes in the GDP, investments, and the output trends in business sectors and subsectors, which the industries, price trends, trade, and the BOP trends, etc. Then about the social forecast, the social trends have a significant implication for the business strategy. It is therefore very essential to forecast the possible changes in the relevant social variables, and therefore it is very important factor which focus on following sub factors. It includes the population growth or the decline. It includes the ethnic composition of the population. It even includes about the lifestyle. It even includes about the social attitudes and of the income levels. Therefore, social trends have a very strong role into the any organization strategy. Especially when we talk about the FMCG sector, we talk about those things which are more related to the consumer durable sectors, where the social forecast is very important. Either it may be any dress or the Apple sector, it may be any you can say the consumer durables include the, even your mobiles, even it includes the sports, or even it include your snacks and the cookies or the bakeries. All those, there is a very big list of consumer segments. Even the movies are also part of this social forecast, that what the consumer wants, what are the trends of the consumer, how they are behaving, what are their likes and dislikes. And based on this, the data which is being collected through this for those variables, the companies take the very strong decisions about their business plans and strategies. Next over here is the political forecast. See, political forecasts have a very important part in envisaging properly the future scenario of the business. This includes relevant factors, for example, change in the relative power of the political party, the political alliances and the political ideologies. Even it includes about the political forecast and also cover the industrial policies, commercial policies, fiscal policies, industry, international political developments, and many more things. Thus, change in the relative power of the political party is very, very important. Recently, the country has seen in a central election, or the election for the central, in which major parties have shown there is a very drastic change we have seen in this election. The results were not as per the expectations for both the parties, both the things ruling and the oppositions. But it's more like a win-win situation. And we have seen a very relative shift in this power over there. Then also the second point is the political alliances. The political alliances represents how the different parties are moving together, what are their political ideologies. Based on that movement and the coalition and their ideologies, the government plans out various policies, framework, rules, regulations, various priorities are being decided on. So for any organization, it is very important to see which government is there to rule them, what are their ideologies, what are their priorities, how they will behave, and many more things. Next, include the political forecast, also includes the industrial policies, commercial policies, fiscal policies, international political developments, and many more things over there. The next includes the technological forecast. The technological forecast includes the innovation and the other technological developments which can drastically alter the business environment. Now, the technological forecast therefore assumes great significance. It encompasses not only technological innovation but also at the pace, the extent of diffusion and penetration of the technologies and their implications. Next is market forecast. Market forecast is something in which we try to predict the consumer behavior, the trends, the market demand, and the industry dynamics, which are all part of market forecast. In this, we try to support the companies in seeing the new market opportunities, creating the marketing plans, introducing the new goods and services, and outplacing the rivals. Next is the demographic forecast. The demographic forecast aims to forecast the shift in the demographic attributes, including the age, gender, economic bracket, and the geographic distribution. It assists the company in identifying their target market, customizing the goods and services, organizing the growth around the location, and modifying the marketing tactics in response to the shifting consumer trends. Next over is environmental and sustainability forecast. This type of forecast entails spotting trends, laws, and the consumer preferences pertaining to the environmental responsibility and sustainability. It helps companies to create eco-friendly procedures, integrate sustainability into their goods and operations, and prepare for shifting of the consumer demands. Prepare for shifting for the consumer demands. Next is the competitive forecasting. The goal of competitive forecasting is to project the rivals, tactics, moves, and the capacities. It aids companies in comprehending the competitive environment, seeing possible risk for the openings, and creating a strong positioning in the competitive strategies. Next over here is the risk forecasting. Risk forecasting basically represents predicting the possible risk and uncertainties such as natural catastrophes, geopolitical events, supply chain disruptions, or the volatility in the financial markets that may have an impact on the corporate operations and is known as a risk forecasting. It supports companies with the risk management, backup plans, and well-informed decision making to reduce the possible dangers. What are the steps in environmental forecasting? The steps in the environmental forecasting can be seen through this image. In this image, the first step includes set the clear goals, what you want to forecast. What is your priority in forecasting or studying this data? And exactly what type of information you are looking from your study. So you clearly define your goals. Then based on that, start collecting the information, gather the information which is useful, which is important, which can be studied carefully. Then select those methods or select the methods which can be utilized in the organization for making various plans for the various forecasting. Next is analyze the data. In analysis of the data or in analyzing the data, we have to analyze the data by using various tools. Those tools are again being studied over there in this session, yesterday's session. Those tools may be, for example, SWOT analysis or the SWOT is strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. Then apart from that, there may be passive analysis or the past analysis, industry analysis, or even there may be a very commonly used tool. There is a very commonly used tool which is called as we study about various factors like economic, social, technological, political, which is called as a passive analysis. Apart from the passive analysis, there is a very interesting again a tool which is called as five quarters model or the five quarters approach, in which we study about the various techniques which are required for this which are required for the study of the organization. Then apart from this step, there is even a STEAM or the staple or the LAPSET analysis, which are almost similar to like the passive analysis, which are acronyms to the passive analysis. And this five forces model or the five forces model is again a very important tool in which we study about the five forces. For example, the threat of the competitors, the threat of the new entrants. Then even we study about the bargaining power of the suppliers, the threat of the substitutes, and the bargaining power of the buyers. And so this was given by the Michel's Porter or the Michel Porter's five forces model is again a very important strategic tool which is being used there in the which is again used in the forecasting. So this is all about over there. Then how can we make after the study has been done, how to make the forecast? So forecast is done based on the data which is being analyzed. Then we need to validate the forecast. Validation of the forecast represents how this data is being validated, it is being studied, or it is being verified. The reliability and validity of the forecast is again important. Lastly, include the review and the adjustment of the data in order to set your goals. Now, what are those techniques which are required in the environmental forecast? There are multiple techniques which are required in the environmental forecasting. These techniques can be subdivided. This is basically a statistical area in which the data which you have collected is being studied. This data can be studied based on the two approach. First is quantitative approach, second is qualitative approach. The quantitative approach can be divided into two ways. One is econometric way, that is called econometric modelings, and second is basically the trend exploration or the series data analysis. While the qualitative method includes those areas where the study has been done more on the non-statistical way, but again the discussions in the form of brainstorming or the Delphi method or any strategic issue analysis or any judgment models are being used. And lastly, we even apply the multiple scenario developments in order to analyze our environment or forecast our environment. So this particular thing is can be studied carefully. When you talk about the quantitative techniques, it can be numberized. It can be numberized under the numerical data, which is over there. The first is the econometric technique. The econometric technique is a statistical method used by economists. It is a set of quantitative techniques that is useful in making the economic decisions. It is application of the statistical and the mathematical theories to the economics for the purpose of testing hypotheses, forecasting future trends, and many more things. For example, a real life application of the econometrics would be the study of hypothesis that as a person income increases, spending also increases. Second is the trend of the exploration of the time series analysis. This model assuming that the past is interaction with the future and accelerate. That is, we try to extend the application of known information to the unknown situation and thus the historical data to the future. We can say future is viewed in the light of past under this technique. It is an empirical procedure in which certain historical trends such as population growth, technological innovation, changes in the incomes are used to predict such variables as the firm scales or the market shares. Because of the time series analysis projects, historical trends in the future is validated, which depends upon the similarity between the past trends and the future conditions. Next include the quantitative techniques. Under the quantitative techniques, the numerical data are not used, but in this method, we use phoning approach. For example, the brainstorming approach. The brainstorming is a creative method of generating the ideas and forecast. Under this method, the group of knowledgeable people are encouraged to generate the ideas, discuss, and make the forecast on the basis of that. It is a popular technique for technological forecasting. Next is the Delphi method. Delphi method is a forecasting procedure in which the experts in the appropriate field of study are independently questioned about their probability for some event occurrence. Thus, the response of the experts are compiled and the summary is sent to each expert. This process is repeatedly until the consequence is arrived regarding the particular forecasted event. Next is the strategic issue analysis. Strategic issue analysis is the process of developing the strategies for the businesses by researching the businesses and the environment in which it operates. A strategic issue is the issue or unresolved questioning needed, a decision or waiting for some clarifying future events. Thus, the developments, events, and the trends, potential or impact of the organization are the strategic issues. It is the strategic as it has a major impact on the course and the direction of the business. Next is the judgmental models. The judgmental model is a forecasting technique in which employees, customers, suppliers, and even the trade associations serve as a source of qualitative information regarding the future trends. For instance, the sales representative may be asked to forecast the sales growth or about the various products categories based on their interactions with the customers. The survey instruments may be made to the customers, suppliers, or the trade associations to obtain their judgment on the specific trends. Next is the scenario development or the multiple scenarios. The future events may be predicted early as our assumptions may go wrong. The trends may change even as it may take a different route altogether, or some unexpected things may change the whole scenario. To overcome this, the manager should formulate several alternative descriptions of the future events and trends, which are called as the multiple scenarios. Then, what are the major challenges in the environmental forecasting? The major challenges in the environmental forecasting are over there. First, biggest challenge is the data availability. It is not very easy to have the data available over there. For the forecasting, you need to have a data which is available to you. The data should be authentic, it should be regular, it should also be in the form in which you are requiring. In case if data is there, but it is not as desired as by you, or it is suppose incomplete data, or somewhere it is not as per the standards, then definitely you can't proceed. Either if you're proceeding ahead, it will give you wrong information, or in case if it is not complete, even your projects or research or the study will get delayed. Next important study is the quality. Quality of the data is again a very important part. You can't be sure that every information, every data which is being collected is same, is correct, and is also useful. So this quality is something which is very critical for any of the data, any of the research, any of the forecasting. To make a good research, good study, you need to have a data which is a better quality over there. Next includes the major challenges, the environmental systems, complexity and uncertainties. You see, the business environment is very complex, highly complex. There are thousands of things going parallelly together, and you need to focus on specific things at a time. So when we talk about environmental system, there are multiple things which are going, multiple things bringing multiple issues, multiple challenges, multiple data, multiple information, and those things. And also that uncertainty is that you're not sure whether which data may be correct or wrong, which information may be useful to you, which type of tool you need to apply, or which thing you need to ignore also. This uncertainty in the business also creates a very, very challenging situation for the organization. Next is the limited knowledge of the biological and the ecological process. Limited knowledge of the biological and the ecological processes are something which represents the use of environmental study for various things. And since we have a very limited source of information in this slide, this is also very challenging. Then for the environmental forecasting, we have to these days study about the climate change and the extreme events. We have to even focus about those things which may impact the organization. We have to look for the government policies, rules, regulations, and guidelines and many more. Then the next important challenge is about the model and the integration and the capacity. And last is about the communication. That is how you are collecting the data, analyzing the data, and then communicating back to the people. So that communication creates a very big limitation because in the communication again there is uncertainty. We as a user or a developer may be getting some information, but it is not possible that the other person on the other side may also get the same information. So there is again a communication creates limitations also and uncertainty also in the organization. So in the end, we can summarize that environmental analysis is the vital process for the strategic management. It allows the identification and the assessment of the internal and external factors for the business that may have an effect on it. The analysis entails assessing the level of the threat or the opportunity associated with such factors. Thus, in turn, it helps in formulating and implementing of the appropriate strategic initiatives and the plans. This process of environmental analysis begins from scanning the factors in the firm's environment, continues with monitoring and forecasting of the changes, and ends with assessment of the impact of them on the firm. Environmental analysis helps firm assuming the proactive stance in understanding and forecasting the changes in and around the environment, thereby increasing the probability of success of the organizational strategies. So this is for the today's class. Thank you, your faculty and coach Vivek Burda from Tirthaka Mahavir University. And for any challenges, any gaps, you can connect back to us on our email ID, vivekg.management@tmu.ac.in. Thank you.